There are 40 people on death row in the state of Tennessee. This is part 2 of the series. James Hawkins, 12 years on death row. After James Hawkins' 3 children delivered detailed testimony about how he stabbed, strangled, and then mutilated their mother's body, a jury found him guilty of murder. Hawkins' 15-year-old daughter, who was just 12 years old when her mother was killed, served as the main witness against him. She spoke about being essayed by her father on multiple occasions. She also told the jury that she was even pregnant due to her father, but she miscarried. Hawkins vowed to kill her if she revealed their relationship to anybody. On February 9, 2008, the girl claimed to have witnessed her father stab and strangle her mother. She claimed that Hawkins coerced her into helping him place the body in a freezer before chopping it up with a knife. She added that as Hawkins cut off the head, she had to hold it. In their testimony, Hawkins' 2 boys stated that on the day of the murder, their father had taken them to buy a saw and that they had assisted him in taking out a mattress from the couple's bedroom. Hawkins didn't take the stand. Although he admitted to mutilating the corpse, he said that his daughter had killed Gator, and he claimed he was simply assisting in the cover-up. Kenneth Henderson, 25 years on death row. During an attempt to break out of the Fayette County Jail in 1997, Henderson shot and killed 43-year-old Fayette County Deputy Tommy Bishop by shooting him through the back of the skull at point-blank range. He was detained at the Fayette County Jail at the time of the incidents that gave birth to this case, serving consecutive terms for felony escape and aggravated burglary. Anthony Himes, 38 years on death row. Himes was found guilty in 1985 of killing, essaying, and robbing a motel maid in Kingston Springs. On March 3, 1985, between 1 and 1:30 p.m., Catherine Jean Jenkins's body was found in room 21 of the Sebon Motel. It was covered in a sheet. The victim was a motel maid who was finishing up her room's cleaning when she was killed. Her outerwear had been drawn up to cover her breasts. She also had a $20 bill under her watch's wrist strap. The cause of death was multiple stab wounds to the chest. Henry Hodges, 32 years on death row. Hodges was found guilty of Ronald Bassett, a phone repairman in Nashville, being robbed and strangled in May 1990. In December 1992, after entering a guilty plea for the 1989 stabbing death of Inglewood nurse Barry McDonald, he was given a second life term. Nicholas Johnson, 17 years on death row. The state of Tennessee sentenced Johnson to death for the murder of a police officer. In court records, Johnson and his girlfriend were engaged in a domestic dispute when Bristol police officer Mark Vance showed up at the door to look into a complaint. Johnson was 26 years old at the time and the father of 2 children with 2 different women. His now girlfriend was also pregnant, and he was insisting for her not to keep the baby. Johnson shot the officer during the argument. Henry Jones, 14 years on death row. In 2009, Jones received a death sentence in Shelby County, Tennessee. He was accused of killing a couple while robbing them at their residence. In 2014, Jones was given a death sentence in Florida for the 19-year-old Carlos Perez's murder. David Jordan, 17 years on death row. Jordan was found guilty of the 2005 shooting rampage at a state maintenance garage in West Tennessee that claimed the life of his estranged wife, Donna Renee Jordan, as well as 2 other individuals, Jerry Wayne Hopper, a Forestry Department employee, and David Gordon, a Jackson-based delivery company worker. David Keene, 32 years on death row. In 1990, Keene entered a guilty plea for the essay and strangulation of Millington resident Ashley Nicole Reed, 8 years old. In addition to many cuts and bruises to her face and neck, the medical examiner testified that Nikki had a severe ligature mark across the front of her neck from a tightly pulled string, possibly a shoelace. This is his confession to the police. I pulled off to the side of the road and undressed Ashley and undid my pants, and I held my hand over her throat and tried to essay her. I felt bad and I stopped, and Ashley had turned blue in the face. She wasn't breathing. I tied a shoelace around her neck and she was still not breathing. I untied the shoelace, wrapped her up in a blanket, tied the blanket together, and dumped her off into the river off of the old Auction Street boat dock. Then I went back over to West Memphis and told Ashley's mother that she was spending the night at her friend Chantel's house. Terry King, 39 years on death row. Diana K. Smith, the victim, was approached by Terry King and his cousin, Don King, on July 31, 1984, in the afternoon as they were touring Cherokee Lake. After leaving, the three went to Don King's trailer, Terry King accompanying the victim in her vehicle. Terry King then went and got himself some LSD. He took some, and so did the victim. King had also consumed beer all day long and taken one or more tablets of substances. After getting to Don King's trailer, the victim carried on with her wine consumption. Terry King had essayed the victim and took her for a drive in her vehicle. She eventually questioned him, "Why did you all essay me?" After that, King forced her to get into the car's trunk and drove to the residence of his buddy and fellow defendant, Randall Joe Sexton. King talked to Sexton and took his firearm. He got back in the victim's vehicle and drove away. Sexton drove with his own vehicle alongside King. King eventually forced the victim to exit her car's trunk and lie face down on the ground as he took her to a forested area close to a brook. Then he killed her by shooting her at least once in the back of the skull. The following day, King and Sexton went back to dispose of the body, tossing it into a quarry lake after putting it in a tent and weighing it down with cinder blocks. A few days later, the body was found. Following their arrests, both Sexton and King provided statements to the police after relinquishing their rights. The two guys faced trial together. Larry McKay, 41 years on death row. Melvin Wallace Jr. entered the LNG Sundry store at 1069 North Watkins in Memphis on August 29, 1981, at around 11 p.m. to buy 2 barbecue sandwiches. Wallace knew 2 of the men working at the Sundry store since he was a frequent customer. The employees were Benjamin Cook and Steve Jones. There were 4 men inside the store when he arrived. Michael Eugene Sample and Larry McKay were the 2 other black guys. Although they were strangers to Wallace, at 2:43 p.m. on August 31, 1981, he positively identified them in a lineup as Cook and Jones murderers and Sample as the man who had shot him in the leg and back and tried to shoot him in the head. Wallace stated in his deposition that he followed Cook to the back of the shop where the sandwiches were being made. McKay was standing in the back, muttering to himself while holding a quart of 45 beer. Wallace turned to face Jones and Sample in front of the store, not wanting to engage into a fight with an inebriated person. He turned to face Cook when he thought the sandwiches would be ready. Sample yelled at Wallace to stop and shot him in the thigh after Wallace broke and ran for the front door when he realized that was a robbery. Sample approached Wallace while he was trying to act dead, said, "This man ain't dead," and then shot him in the back. Wallace had heard Sample demanding that Jones gave him all of the money and heard Jones say, "Man, I gave you everything I had." Cook was shot in the head by McKay, according to Wallace's testimony. Sample returned to the floor where Wallace lay and placed a pistol to his head. It clicked multiple times without going off. According to Wallace's testimony, he came up off the floor and engaged Sample in wrestling. Wallace went unconscious as the gun went off just past his head. The last thing Wallace heard before he passed out was Sample saying, "Let's get the hell out of here." Wallace was able to provide the police with information about the incident and the description of the killers. Cook and Jones passed away from the gunshot wounds to the heads. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.